Okay, I have 9 o'clock. We'll call the April 23rd Board of Commissioners meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start with agenda review. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes today.
Move the agenda. Second.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Start with the state of emergency declaration.
Morning, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Morning.
Sorry, I won't take too much of your time. This is more of a formality. With the winter storm that came through that started on April 10th, we had some significant utility damage, power poles, power lines. Not all of our power companies qualify for public uninsured damages, but our cooperatives do. Benco, a little bit of Steel Electric in the one corner, and some Brown, which is owned by Benco. So we have pieces of it that do touch other cooperatives. The early reports came out that in Blue Earth County, Benco experienced approximately $200,000 in damages to utilities. Some of the other counties south of us was significantly more. HSCM reached out to us, Homeland Security Emergency Management, and recommended that we do an additional declaration of emergency for the winter storm in case that when the declaration that's in currently by the governor, in case it doesn't only encompasses the flooding, and then the winter storm could possibly. They've tried to bunch it together, but it may get broken apart when it goes to the federal level, and yet we want to make sure that we have the paperwork in place to qualify for any state disaster recovery assistance for public uninsured. So that's why we went ahead and moved forward. We would meet the threshold of over $140,000 for a state damage, and we may meet the federal level as the numbers come in. We just haven't got the final numbers yet. So.
Very good.
I move approval of the resolution.
Second.
Any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Mike.
You bet.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
We'll move on to environmental services.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning, gentlemen.
Go ahead.
Start off. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 07-19 is a request from Lance Enterprises Incorporated for review and approval of a conditional use permit to allow for the conversion of an existing swine farrowing operation to a nursery and finishing operation. The applicant intends to increase the permitted animal units from 620 animal units to 945 animal units, which has caused the need for a conditional use permit. The applicant is proposing to convert 2 total confinement swine barns from farrow to nursery and finish. If approved, the applicant intends to stock the existing barns with 2,100 head of swine between 55 and 300 pounds and 2,100 head of swine under 55 pounds. All manure will be stored in existing 8-foot pole barn concrete pits. The property is zoned agricultural and is located in the southeast quarter of Section 27, Butternut Valley Township. Mr. Rolfing presented the staff report. The applicants were present. There was no public comment and little discussion by the Planning Commission. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to the County Board a recommendation of approval based on the findings prepared by staff, and the Board action is the resolution. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We'll open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on PC 07-19? Is there anyone that would like to comment on PC 07-19? Last time, is there anyone that would like to comment on PC 07-19? If not, I'll close the public portion of this and bring it back to the board for action.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 08-19 is a request from Daniel and Tara Nelson for review and approval of a conditional use permit to allow an elder care residential unit to be constructed on site. Property contains some areas within the mapped general floodplain and some areas within the shoreland overlay district of the Lissour River. However, the requested location of the proposed project is outside of both the floodplain and the shoreland overlay district. The property is zoned agricultural and is located in the western half of the eastern half of the northwest quarter of Section 30, Luray Township. Mr. Stubbs presented the staff report. The applicants were represented. The Planning Commission indicated the elder care provision was a good addition to the ordinance. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to the County Board a recommendation of approval based on the findings prepared by staff, and the board action is the resolution.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. We will open this up for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on PC 08-19? Anyone that would like to comment on PC 08-19? Is there anyone that would like to comment on PC 08-19? If there's no comment, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring it back to the board for action.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
I have no discussion, Mr. Chair, but I just want to add the comment about that we thought this was a good addition to the ordinance. The Planning Commission is very supportive of this, and we've used it 2 or 3 times, and very nice to see that people can do this, and I'm glad it works inside of our ordinance. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you for your comments. Any other comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Got any more?
The feedlot.
Yep.
Annual report.
Move on to the feedlot.
Thank you. The presented annual county feedlot officer report is a summary of many feedlot-related tasks that were completed by myself during the 2018 calendar year. This report is very similar to previous annual feedlot reports. Worth County does earn performance credits for a number of categories, including but not limited to site inspections and attendance at approved training sessions. Performance credits are paid out to counties for the work that has been done above and beyond the minimum program requirements of the delegation agreement. In short, this is an annual summary of some of the goals that are presented in the county's delegation agreement with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. Pending approval, this document will need the signature of the chair of the county board, and this form will be forwarded to the MPCA and will be added to the records for the county. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second. Okay, any discussion?
That's the way it's going.
If
Good job.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job. I was blessed one day to ride with the person doing the feedlot and saw the type of work that's needed in there, and you guys do an amazing job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you for your comments. Okay, if there's no other comments, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report is accepted. Thank you.
It's a lovely job.
Thanks for your work.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
We will move on to the Blandon Foundation grant.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have some exciting news for everybody this morning.
This is good stuff.
This is good stuff. So what we're bringing to board for approval is for us to be able to utilize the grant that we received from Blandon Foundation in the amount of $25,000. The grant is to be used in conjunction with funds that the county has set aside, and we'll work together to do a feasibility study. We have looked at different vendors, and we have interviewed Finley Engineering, and they are the ones that we believe we're going to go with. They're on Blandon's approved list of engineers. We've worked really hard to meet with the different internet service providers to make sure that we are going to be in clear communication with them throughout this process, and give them our findings from the feasibility study. So we're really excited to kick this project into overdrive and get the ball rolling.
Very good. Well, thank you. Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Where's Finley Engineering from?
Slayton, Minnesota.
Okay. Have other counties used Finley?
Yes,
Okay.
several of the counties around us have used Finland.
Okay.
And that's why we thought it would be a really good fit, because then any of the overarching ones would, you know, like the BevComs and those guys would be able to say, oh, look, it spread through these other counties as well, and we could maybe go through there.
Which is really good.
It's very good.
Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding the area also when you look at southern Minnesota.
Correct.
Great.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, if not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very
All
much.
right, thanks.
Thank
This
you.
is exciting.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
very exciting to be a part of. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the Human Services report. Phil?
Morning, Phil.
Yeah, good morning, Phil.
Morning, Phil.
Looks like you got a stack of stuff
I
there.
do, just for you, Commissioner. Bring
Get
up
some
your
signing
paper.
done today.
Yeah.
Get ready, get ready.
I had to borrow one from Bob.
Yeah, I did. I went to a meeting with Bob and didn't bring my glasses or a pen, so I don't know what that was about. But it didn't.
I got a lot done.
Yeah, it went really well. He couldn't read and he just said sign here.
Oh, it's good to see you all. Thank you for hearing me today. I do have 3 action items to bring before the board this morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The first of those being under adult mental health, Vine Faith in Action. This is the continuation of our lease for the Second Step Clubhouse over at Vine in their community center. Obviously, our clubhouse promotes community integration and access to services because of its location. What is being proposed is a 4% increase for the first year and then 2% increase for the years 2 through 5. The term is May 1st of 2019 through April 30th of 2024. Right now the lease is at $37,000, and by the end of that 5-year cycle it would be 41,000 would be the spread. And it's $16 a square foot now, and it would end up being $18 a square foot by the end of that lease, just to give you some idea of that. The supportive housing item is also fairly straightforward. Minnesota Housing Finance Agency has what we refer to as FHPAP, Family Homeless Prevention Assistance Project, and MVAC, a lot of acronyms, are the ones that administer this contract and grant. So this is a continuation for them to receive and administer the FHPAP grant on behalf of the 9 counties in Region 9. The purpose is to assist individuals and families to prevent homelessness and reestablish stable housing as quickly as possible if they are homeless. And it is a biennial funding agreement. There is no money that's contained in this document. The term would be July 1st of 2019 through September 30th, 2021. And then the final item, Commissioners, is Community Mental Health Clinic. This one is much more complex and unusual, so I'll spend a little time explaining what we're looking at. The Mental Health Information System has been, much like METS and MNLARS, a real problem for us as far as pushing information to the state and getting any useful information back. The problem, from my point of view, is that they took information from all different sources in all different ways, put it into a repository, and then spit it out. Well, we were comparing apples to oranges almost throughout the whole process. And so what this is an attempt, and it is a carve-out attempt, to take one vendor who is our electronic health management health record management company, and pilot with them interface, to develop an interface with this technology firm so that they would be able to then break through this kind of roadblock and create a standardized process for both pushing data and pushing out data from their MHIS system. So DHS is the money behind it. It is overage money, which means that in the community supports program, like that helps fund some of the case management, like people at the clubhouse, they had leftover money, so it's one-time money. The only thing you can do with one-time money is projects like this. But it is a big ticket item, and I'll explain why. It's $420,000. We would receive a 3% fee, and the reason why it's so big is because in your report there you'll see the listed clinics. So it's like our clinic. Ours isn't listed, but we're one of them, the sentence says we'd also receive the $19,500. And we'd receive a 3% admin fee for administering this fund to all these clinics. 10 clinics throughout the state, 32 counties would be affected by this. So it's not small as far as what we're trying to do. The problem is if you're not a CareLogic vendor user, there's still going to be a hole, because this isn't going to fix the whole issue. But our hope would be, and Bob and I discussed this some, that we would show how to break through and create this interface and be able to do this work the right way. And so that's the big ticket item. The breakout of the overall of 420, CareLogic would get 225. Our admin would be about 12.6, and then our clinic would get 19.5 like the others listed. So that's the purpose of it for your attention.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I'll move approval of the action items. Then I
Second.
have some questions.
Okay,
And I'll second that.
okay. So
Um,
wait, motion and second, discussion.
The MHFA, there's no money in it.
Correct.
But I see that Southwest Minnesota got an award for ending homelessness.
Oh. Yes.
I always question if you really ended homelessness.
Right. Yes, right.
And I just wondered how we were doing, if you even know. I mean, I think that's a real challenge.
Right, and I know back in the Plenty era, which I'm sure you're well aware of, Commissioner Landcamer, you know, there was a big push to end homelessness. That was the way that a lot of these programs started, and when we go into some of our informational items, we're going to talk about our homeless project and our team. I think we're a long ways from ending homelessness. I agree with you in that comment. I think the truth is we have options now that we didn't have, and that's the good news. The bad news is even our community, as you all know, still struggles with a lot of folks that are indigent and homeless. Yeah, I think it's true a small percentage of those would choose to be homeless and have a transient lifestyle, and I think that's something I certainly understand. But we're a long way from treating all the people or serving all the people that need that help. So I certainly agree with your comment. Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any other discussion?
Well taken by the commission.
Yes, absolutely.
Dealing with it.
Just on the grant, it's a short time frame,
Right.
and I think that's challenging, but I think it's well worth trying, and can't be any worse off than we are now.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. I will say, Bob and I had a similar just kind of discussion because of the time frame, the fact that this money came with short notice and we threw our hat in the ring. Yeah, it's always, I say to staff, what we compare it to, and if we compare it to doing nothing, we're going to end up with what we have now, which is a mess. This is an attempt to try to make that better. It's not a perfect attempt, and I think it is a big ticket item for something that I hope will have ripple effects throughout other places, other systems that feed this MHIS, this information system for mental health. It's really important, of course, everybody totally agrees with the mission that we're trying to use data to drive our work. I'm completely behind that. We're just, again, a long way from really getting there. So I appreciate your comment. I think it is. I said to Bob, I put it in because it's better to do it than to not do it. Is where I think, yeah.
Good?
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Action items are approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, a few informational discussion items. Try to rotate through our major program areas. We're certainly willing to adjust kind of our calendar that we have if there's anything more temporal that you guys want or work sessions. Certainly we're willing to give information on anything that's front burner for the board. Today I have two program areas. Andrew Peach is our supervisor who has both of these. They're the oddest couple you'd ever have, child support and supportive housing. They're almost as the opposite ends of the continuum. Child support's a pretty defined practice that we have, and of course homelessness is chasing people out in the community and doing that kind of clutch out kind of social work. So he has two teams that do very different things. I'm going to start with child support. You'll see some of the graphics here. Very similar to our past history is, I'll just quickly go through these graphs. The paternity establishment is to figure out who's mom and dad. We've outperformed the state average, and that's kind of our benchmark, really year over year. And so I don't think there's anything remarkable about that. Our order establishment also is kind of mirroring but overperforming the state average. Collections on current support is the one that we're flipped on. So everyone we outperform the state average except for collections. And Pat, we work closely with his team on some of the court actions that go into this. It's really hard to move the bar. Every little bit, like our staff are thrilled that we went from 71.58 to 72.10 because it's kind of this real stable situation. And what you try to do is get every little bit out of that to make sure we're trying to get really the support to go to the kids is the mission of child support. And so our collections, are ticking up. We're glad about that, but we still have a ways to go. And our demographic and our mix is what kind of have kept us where we are there. Collections on arrears are dated people that have not paid their child support and chasing that. You'll see that we dipped down. We're still above state average on this one, but some of that is our collections were actually up even slightly, and that affects the arrears because there's less arrears. Mm-hmm. And then also we've cleaned up some cases that were out there as well, and so just took those out wherever they belonged. And so it does affect the percentage when you deal with either the sample size or the math that goes into these formulas. The cost effectiveness also has trended downward because of some of those same factors. Still well above the state average, and we're very proud of that. That's a really important one, that we always stay above our cost effectiveness, which really the math on that is all of our costs dumped into a bucket against what we collect. And so is it worth this effort? And that it is, and that it has some margin is a really good thing. And then the open case count, you'll see we're back up a little bit, but it really is something that we obviously don't control, and it does affect us depending on what the community needs are. So we really don't have much control over our caseload count, but we are tracking back up after a pretty steady decline over the past 4 years. And then the overall collections, again, this is where we work in tandem with Pat's staff, and I think our collections, are again fairly stable, down slightly. One thing, and I'm sure Pat's very aware of this too, a national trend that's unique and different that I wanted to tell the board about is that I think judges are now interested in trying to set what they call realistic targets for child support. So they used to say this is how much you owe based on the math, and they'd get nothing. It would be so much that a lot of times if it's typically dad decides, I can't pay that, so I'm not going to pay anything. Mm-hmm. Whereas opposed to now the strategy is to say, how about we set, a realistic number that you can actually pay and try to get more people hooked and engaged in the process. Mm-hmm. And that's why you see this overall collection. We collect less in any one snapshot, but we hope to get it all over time and engage more people. So we'll see how that experiment goes. That is a national kind of approach to this issue. So that's well beyond our county as far as some of that trend line. That's a picture of child support. A few graphics also on supportive housing. The first one's very straightforward. I will say that Andrew let me know that these percentages and the split out in these next two slides are almost a mirror of the previous year. So we're very stable in how we're trying to serve folks that need support with their housing. Total participants, you'll see in the left column there, 131, and total households 75. You'll see how that breaks out in the pie chart, multi-person households at about 37% and single person at about 63%. And then the barriers are kind of broken out. Some of those cross over, as you can see. If you have a disabling condition, that might also be represented in some of the other breakouts. But just to give you an idea of what some of the barriers and the presenting issues are when we engage folks that struggle with stable housing. The next slide is about our dashboard, and really this one is exit reasons, why people leave the program, which is also somewhat interesting and informative. You'll see the two big ones in the graphic. Left voluntarily with subsidized housing is the rest of that. The definitions are above, but so they had some stabilized housing, but they decided to leave the support side of the program, so they no longer wanted to continue with the support services, the case management. And the other big one, just two pieces over, is that they moved to another facility or institutional care. Their condition or needs changed so that they need to be in an even more structured environment. So those are the two big ones. But certainly the rest, even though they have a smaller percentage, are also very telling about what we deal with. And there's, you know, 10% of our caseload that passes away on average, and things like that that we're dealing with constantly. So kind of an interesting snapshot. And the final slide, this is a new program that Andrew developed. Bob was supportive of us kind of sticking our necks out a little bit using, I apologize for all the acronyms, but GRH is Group Residential Housing. It's a funding source. And then LTH is long-term housing. This is a new program that Andrew started that we're the provider for. There are some people interested, as the board has always kind of wanted us not to supplant or take over areas where there's a lot of providers. When we started, there were none. Now there's a trickling of people interested in this service using GRH, the Group Residential Housing, as a funding source, and pairing that with services again for the long-term homeless population. You'll see our graphics aren't real sophisticated because we've really been at it just about a year, but in 18, the full year, total enrollment was at 16. We closed about 14, and newly enrolled was about 12. So good turnover in our estimation. And then the final graphic, the most important thing is just the average line. I mean, there's a lot of volatility in the people being served in the program, but on average, people stayed engaged with us for almost a year, 309 days. So very pleased with that, actually, with this population, that we are looking for stability and that they seem to be satisfied if they're not jumping off, after a month and saying this isn't helping me. So I think that's a good statistic as well.
That's good.
Wow,
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Phil?
good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Thank you
Great.
very much.
Thank you for your report, Phil.
Thank you, Commissioner. I was going to say that Darren, I looked around because Darren said he was going to come, and I don't know if he got waylaid or what, but it looks like he didn't make it, and I told him right about this time we would be rolling, so something probably came up, but he intended. There are the minutes from our advisory committee. I will say that there's a lot of our statistical information about our budget, our operating budget about 32 million, and then the pass-through budget for human services in our community is like $144 million if you include health care and all that. So it's a big service that you all allow us to do.
Well, thank you, but your ratings are going down without Darren.
I know that's true, and it's way down since Jay. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah, Jay, well, you're not going to catch up to Jay.
Just one other thing. I was talking to Margot Duchel, who runs the Council of Churches, who talked about how helpful Andrew has been and what a good working relationship it is, and just always think it's good to know that
Yes,
stuff.
and Commissioner, I think you hooked me up with MCC too, just to meet. We had a meeting a couple months back that was really helpful and a really good networking connection, so that we can support what they're up to, but they also support what we're up to.
I think it's a great
It is.
combination.
It's a really good fit.
It's also good to know, the public to know how much the county does help on those things. I mean, you always hear about the low-income housing and how the different churches and stuff are working. County doesn't get their name involved with it, which is fine.
Right.
But, people are asking me, well, what does the county do? And I said, well, we do this and this. Well, I've never heard of that.
Right.
So it'd be good to get some sort of public recognition as to what the county actually does do for low-income housing for the homeless.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there's, we have willingness to do that, to meet whatever the board's desires are about press releases, or even I think when we talk at work sessions too, like if from that you want us to say, why don't we go ahead and put this in the communicator or try to get an article in the paper about this. We certainly, I think all our supervisors are very capable of helping to get that message out, making sure that people see the infrastructure, because we have kept a low profile, there's no doubt,
well,
but that's adjustable. It's easily adjustable.
Well, and that's kind of a county thing, it seems like.
Yeah.
I mean, as the city government gets a lot of press, and the county government just kind of keeps on rolling on.
That's right.
And people don't know how much involved that we really do with the general public.
We are the workhorse, we don't,
That's
flaunt it.
absolutely, and that's okay, but
To a point. I'm
sometimes
very proud of the work we do. There's no doubt about it.
for my sake, is I want to really show how much our staff is doing, and how much it's not us. It's it's what the staff is doing, and how much we really are working to help help low income, and you know, it makes so much difference, and people don't know how much the county is involved with that.
Thank you, Commissioner, I hear you.
At the Project Community Connect last week,
Yes,
they were-
good example,
our
isn't it?
people are in full force. And,
Definitely.
with Andrew Peach and
Right.
Andy and all that.
Right, right.
The
Good
other
stuff.
thing is, low-income housing, most of those people are working one
That's right.
or two jobs. I always call it workforce housing because that's what it
That's
is.
beautiful, yep.
They're working at least one, if not more
Absolutely.
jobs.
Great.
And, so it's really important to have that stability.
Right, and I think there is that bias that people think, you know, being a support or assistance is a way of life, but that is not the case
Yeah.
statistically. People come on and off when they need it, which is how it's supposed to be.
Exactly.
Not to say that there isn't some degree of fraud and there isn't some folks that kind of use a system that maybe are able-bodied, but people do want to contribute to the community, I think, by and large, for sure, we see that. Thank you all.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, we'll move on to administrative services.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes from April 9th.
Move the minutes.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? If none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved.
Next are the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
I'll move approval.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
I don't have any questions.
Okay,
I don't either.
No.
there's no discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Bills are approved.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 8 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. Excuse me, we do have one action item for you this morning, and that is authorization to initiate recruitment for a property assessment supervisor in the taxpayer services area. This is part of that reorganization and consolidation effort now that we have consolidated taxpayer services and environmental services, and so this would be a position that would oversee the appraisers, our mapping and GIS staff, as well as the drainage inspector that works out in the field. And so it's part of the overall restructuring that the board was made aware of back at our March work session.
Have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? If there's no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved.
The informational items have a lot of positions being filled, and so I'll quickly run down those. We have a financial assistance case aide in our human services department that was filled, along with a clerical specialist in human services. We also filled a 911 dispatcher, a legal assistant in the county attorney's office, a medium equipment operator in public works, a taxpayer services specialist here in the taxpayer services department. We also filled an assistant county attorney position, or will in June, and then we have a promotion of a legal assistant to a legal assistant 1 in the county attorney's office. And so that particular promotion has contributed to recruitment being initiated to fill the legal assistant position. So be happy to answer any questions the board might have about any of those informational items.
No questions?
None for me.
That's good. Good.
Okay, thank you.
Then item number 9 in your packet are the first quarter donations. The vast majority of the monetary donations are to the library. Again, we are very appreciative of the donations to the summer reading program. Both the Friends of the Deep Valley Library as well as the Glenn Taylor Foundation are strong supporters of that particular program at the library. We also did receive a donation from Quick Trip for canine activities in the Sheriff's Department. We currently don't have a canine, and so that has been communicated to Quick Trip, but they've said keep those funds, and if you return to that, they would like to support that effort. We also, on this report, show the in-kind donations, and again, you'll see most of those in-kind donations are to our library, and we appreciate the support of all those individuals and entities that provide those resources. And then lastly, we have some volunteer time that has been provided to the library, and we also appreciate those efforts. So at this point, we would recommend acceptance of the donations report.
I would move to approve. Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Just to, I guess, the canine donation, I know that the sheriff's office has obtained drones, which actually are safer than canines, and you can see in lakes and throughout that. Quick Trip might be interested in having that $1,000 go towards the drones as opposed to a canine. I was part of a demonstration in northern Minnesota, what they're doing with their drones, and it's amazing what they can see that, you know, you wouldn't see otherwise, and be able to find people in cornfields where the corn's really high. So just a thought.
I think they actually used the drone we have in the recovery for the gentleman that drowned in the drainage ditch down there. They said it was very helpful, saved a lot of hours.
Sure.
I was really excited to hear they got the drone. Yeah, I think it's wonderful.
If you receive our drainage blog, there are some pictures in the most recent issue of that came from the drone, and it is very interesting how much detail comes with the particular drone we're using.
I'm really proud of the Sheriff's Department for doing that, and then sharing it with Mike.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be an asset for the whole county.
I do too.
Right.
I do too.
Okay, anything else on that? Did we vote?
I don't
Yeah,
think
we
so.
did.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, that leaves us with commissioners' reports on committees. Mark, would you like to start?
Let's see, Tuesday after Kip and I had RCF, went through some clients and so forth, review. Wednesday, April 10th, had we were gonna go to Micah. It was a snowstorm, or late snowstorm. So, we did a phone conference. We learned a little bit about what was happening in the legislature, and I'm sure some of you might have a little bit more to fill in with that since things change. They're starting to change a little bit there. Then Friday, I had April 12th. I had a Heading Home Together. That was leadership circle, and that was up at Northern Services Center in Dakota County. So not only did we participate in our meeting and small groups and all, but I talked to the security guard there and learned a lot about that portion of Dakota County. They have more than one service center. That's kind of interesting, the setup. They're moving with the steering committee for the Homeless Together to look at racial equities, disparities, and all that, and with housing, and try to come up with some solution there. And of course, it's the governor's. One of his initiatives is the whole area with the homeless, and what we can do about it, and that's, of course, Jennifer Hull being the new housing finance director. So it's getting a little bit more push, I think, now than it had. Then on Wednesday, there was the 16th, Tuesday the following. After that was the Project Community Connect. We normally don't. We didn't have a board meeting, so went down to the Verizon Center and their event center. And Blue Ridge County, our people are working, particularly in the homeless area. Andrew Peach, and of course Andy was there, and Marie, and then Julie was there. They were dealing two different booths there, but making people aware of the people that come in, that what we offer, and was good, and I talked to some other people there, but that was, and of course, Partners for Affordable Housing was there too. And then, on, Thursday the 18th, they did have a review for our budget review of our ASA All Seasons Arena, that, the first year of having to deal with a budget with this arena, and trying to get other communities to be involved that are part of it, get some dues out of certain communities that aren't part of it yet, and that was a good review, so I think that really concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Vance?
Okay, well, I have a few weeks to cover here. Since I wasn't here last 2 weeks ago.
You can skip them.
Well, I'll just run through them really fast. Starting on March 26th, which was about a month ago, and the board meeting, last board meeting I made. After that board meeting, I had a library board workshop. On March 27th, I attended the AMC County Roundtable, which was up at in North Mankato, and that was very well taken. That was a great. And Colleen was there, and it was. Yeah, you were there too, weren't you? So, on March 29th, I had a transportation funding meeting that was up in the cities with Representative Hornstein. On April 1st, I had a Blue Earth County, Nicollet County Safe Roads. On April 3rd through the 5th, the AMC Leadership Summit was up at Grandview, and Colleen couldn't be there. She was feeling ill at that time, but Laura, our HR director, was there, and it was an amazing 3 days. I mean, there was some really good instructors, and we're talking about going together with Nicollet County if we can, and see if we can get one of the instructors to come and work with us. Very positive. April 6th was the Warm Your Heart event, and everybody was here.
Yeah.
And then
We reported that last time.
see, yeah, you reported that last time. See, I didn't report that last time. I wasn't here 2 weeks ago. All right, April 9th, 2 weeks ago, I had my knee surgery, so I wasn't here. So I went for a while, and I had a call-in April 16th to the NACRO Central Region call-in, made that. April 18th, I made the TDS board, and the 19th, I had a AMC board, and Colleen was up there with me. In fact, drove me up and drove me back. God bless her. And then yesterday, I had a magic board meeting up in Anoka County, and my wife drove me up there. So hopefully,
You bless her too.
I bless my wife every day. And in fact, it's her birthday today. So
I saw that this morning.
Yep. So that's my full report.
Great.
Thank you, Chair.
Glad to see you're feeling better.
You know what, it is, and even though you have that pain of recovery, the difference in the knee is like night and day, and you understand those.
Yep,
those
you know it'll go away.
Yep, that's the whole thing.
So, well, good. Yep.
All right, Mr. Chair, after our last meeting, Mark already mentioned RCEF, but we did talk a little bit about the funding mechanism that we have up at the state Capitol, and it was still working its way through the ranks, and I have not gotten an update on that lately, so I'm assuming it's still moving. And we had some good discussion about some clients that the RCEF was helping out, and like Micah was already mentioned, I was on the conference call, and they were wondering why we weren't there, but it was pretty nasty, because we were actually on our way, but it was the roads were bad enough that we decided to do a conference call, and they were very busy up there, because it sounded like that's why it's nice being there, but the staff was kind of coming in and out. They were moving and going to meetings and coming late, and they're moving the agenda around because they're all back and forth at the Capitol, but they're doing a lot of work up there for us. Then I had a MVAC executive meeting, just our regular monthly bills and whatnot we have to pay there. Did a couple grants for the child development program. And then after that, I had a child development meeting down at the St. Peter's and Paul's Church, and that's where all of the there's a group of people that get together and talk about the program that we have through MVAC and try to improve that program and talk a little bit about the state funding and the budgeting. And then last week, during the middle of the week, I went up to St. Cloud with Mark Griffin from our EMS, and they had all of the directors from Minnesota up there just talking about the grants and the different things that they have going on right now, and they're having some struggles with the EMSRB and getting their grants, and so they just had a meeting and talked about that. Normally it's just the directors that go to this, but they ask if a chairman or someone on the board wants to come, and I did go. There was a couple other commissioners there, and it's just enlightening to see all the work that those people do, as many of our other staff do, that we just don't see because we're at that level that they do all the work on the ground, and they're frustrated with the things they have going on with these grants. They're trying to do their work, and plus they're getting some extra pushback on the grants, so they're just trying to work together and figure out a good way to deal with that and keep the program running as efficiently as it can. So, and that brings me to today, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Colleen?
I had a NACO Arts and Culture meeting. The annual conference will be in Clark County, and so they're looking at how do arts and really make a difference in communities. And so one of the things they're asking us to do is get a slideshow of public art in our community. So once they get the new sculptures up, I think it's a great thing for us to showcase what's going on in this area. So I'm excited about that. I had True Transit, which I think makes such a difference for people in Nicollet, Blue Earth, and Le Sueur County. The ability to come into the doctor, to come in to do whatever, really makes a difference. So the number of rides are up significantly from last year, just so you know that. They hired Ron Decker to replace Carol, which they hate losing Carol, but Ron brings some great skills. He worked for Land Air Express, for MRCI, so we were really lucky to get him.
That's great.
So that's really great. They've also hired a part-time dispatcher to help in the afternoons. They're going to put tablets in the buses, just because it's a great way to be able to communicate. And you know, if somebody needs a ride and you're going right by their place, it really helps with the dispatch and that type of thing. They've worked with Route Match to design this new software, and Route Match has done most of the designing of software in the transit community, so I think it's a real positive thing. MnDOT's annual grant cycle is coming up in July for transit. So I think it's really important, because they're talking, it's always been an annual thing. They're talking about it being a 2-year cycle now, which could be more challenging for all of us. So that's really important. The other thing about True Transit and any transit in this state is many people assume that the only transit is in Minneapolis and St. Paul, in the metro area, and that's not true. I mean, transit across this state is so important, especially in rural communities, rural areas. And so I think it's really important that we talk about the importance of transit in Blue Earth County and all the other counties in the state. I think that's a misconception that many people have. Lots going on right there. We had some discussions about are there ways to make it a little more seamless than it is right now, and I know there's some state hoops that preclude that, but trying to figure out ways to do that I think is really important. There's 5 buses. I never knew how many buses there were. 5 buses, 3 staff. In Mankato you can get mobility transportation up till 11 o'clock at night. That's a change, so that's really nice. Most transit systems stop about 5. And what are the needs for transit, especially in True Transit? It's evenings and weekends. And there just isn't the capability to do that right now. It costs about $10 a ride. So that's kind of what the costs are. So I find it extremely interesting.
Yeah.
As Vance said, we were both at AMC, and Margaret Anderson Kelleher came and spoke to the group. She's always really good about interacting. I think this is the third or fourth time she's been with us and other places. So she handed out this book, which I'll pass around and you can look through it. It's every Senate district in the state, and with the governor's proposal, what additional funds would be there and where they would be spent. So that's Senate District 19 that,
Don't think they've ever done that before, have they?
I've never seen it before. It was news to me. Yeah, and I didn't ask if they'd ever done it before, but it's the first time I've seen it. And so it's really interesting. The NACO board seat that Commissioner McDonough now has, he's term limited out, so there'll be an election in June as to who the NACO board representative for. We have various seats on the NACO board. Every state has one board seat. Jim McDonough holds that. States with 100% membership, thank you very much, in NACO get another seat. And that's held, I think, by Chris Shaw. And then the 10 states with the most people engaged, most counties engaged, get another seat, and that's held by Bob Fox. As they said, Colleen's got a lifetime appointment. Because I'm a past president, as long as I'm a commissioner, I'm on the NACO board. So Minnesota really has more people on the NACO board than practically anybody else. So that's a really good thing. But that position will be open, and they've asked anyone who's interested to send in a letter of that they're interested. So that's important. On the transportation thing, 40 cents of every dollar goes to local government, be it townships, cities, counties. I found that another interesting piece that I know Vance knows all this stuff, but I thought it was really interesting. Lots of stuff that went on at the board meeting, but I'll quit at this point. Yesterday, the Commissioner of Commerce was at MSU to talk about Earth Day and energy. It's in the paper this morning, talking about the wind energy and how they're doing different ways of using vertical and horizontal wind turbines. So that was interesting, and the students were fascinating. They were really great. And then I went, last night the Blue Earth County Library had an Earth Day celebration, so I went down to that, and they had worms there, they had different crafts for people to do. Public health was involved. All of our different places had different booths, so it was really nicely done, and I'm done.
Excellent, thank you. Mind if I break back in? Go ahead. One of the things that Margaret Anderson Kelleher brought up is the difference in 1 cent per gallon by the state. Whereas 1 cent a gallon increase in the state of Minnesota for gas tax would raise approximately $31 million. In Ohio, if they have a 1 cent a gallon increase, it raises $64 million. In the state of Texas, a 1 cent a gallon increase raises $171 million. So when you're talking a gas tax increase and somebody says, well, yeah, but they got a 10-cent gas tax increase. Well, the population difference and everything makes a huge difference. It's interesting is Minnesota has the 5th most roads in the United States. So when you take that into consideration, we're down to 40th in the 50 states of how much a 1 cent gallon increase would assist us because of all the roads that we have to fix across the state of Minnesota. In fact, I went back and got a hold of Sarah Severs, who's the chief of staff for Commissioner Kelleher, and she sent me the whole list that showed me per state how much it was. It's an amazing, it's a public document, it's on the MnDOT thing, but it really goes to show is that, you know, when we're asking for a 10-cent gas tax increase, we're not asking for as much money as they are when they get a 10-cent gas tax increase in a place like Ohio, which has approximately the same amount of roads that we got. But it was just an interesting part of the conversation that Commissioner Kelleher had.
Can I bounce in one more time?
Absolutely.
In the last month, gas has gone from $2.04 to $2.74. None of that money goes to roads.
That's right.
It all goes to the oil companies. So people should think about that. And when we talk about indexing, if in 2008, when the last gas tax was passed, if it would have gone with the CPI, which is the proposal the governor has, we'd be well over a 20-cent gas tax, so additional gas tax. So I mean, you know, when you're talking about 70 cents where it's gone up and gone directly to the oil companies, and not 1 cent of that for roads, makes you think a little, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And if they would have went by the construction index, it would be that much higher because construction costs have gone up higher than the CPI.
And on another issue,
we're kind of jumping back and forth here.
Beltrami County, their out-of-home placement has just been skyrocketing. And with their reserves and their budget in April, they could be out of money. And Beltrami County's in the most dire straits, but that doesn't mean a lot of counties aren't seeing real challenges. We've been really fortunate that the Human Services staff in Blue Earth County has looked at alternative ways to do that, making sure the kids are safe, but you know, trying innovative things. That's not going to take care of it all, but it's a big issue for counties across the state. I just thought I'd bounce that in.
Great discussion, thank you.
Sobering, I mean, a little bit more sobering than transportation.
I know transportation's a little more fun, isn't it, sometimes? Yeah.
Yeah, well, my report is relatively short. The power outage was felt very hard in my district. I was 31 hours without electricity, so I was babysitting my standby generator during that time. Thank goodness I had one. Spent some time driving around my district assessing the electrical pole damage, and we had a lot of poles down in our area. Met with some constituents. Specifically, I met with a gentleman out by Cambria. Mike Mauer and I were out there last Thursday, and we visited a little bit about some flooding damage to a private driveway and see if we can help him with some things on that. And then last Friday, I had a meeting with Bob and Josh, and that's my report. So thank you, everyone, for your reports.
How's the road going out to Dodd Ford Bridge? Is that still underwater?
Had some damage. No, it's not underwater anymore.
Okay.
It's had some damage. I think it'll be okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're relatively fortunate, actually.
There you go.
So okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We will continue on to the joint meeting with Nicollet County
We're going to recess.
at 11:30.
I think you can adjourn because you're going to another meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a good point, but yeah, we're a little different.
Yeah.
We're not just going to lunch, we're going to another meeting.
Another meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's 11:30 again.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Is that
Yeah,
12?
thank you, Mr. Chair.
12.